Welcome to Business with BISILA BOKOKO. I am super happy here because today we have Peter Jackson with us and we're going to speak about recycling, something that is essential by the times that we live in right now. Before we do that, I want to just welcome you, Peter. How are you?
Say that one more time, please.
How are you, Peter?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
Very good. Well, you have a very diverse background working with the small businesses, and you end up becoming yourself a business. Can you please share with the audience your process?
Well, basically, I started out after college working in operations and management production, and stayed in that industry for a few years. Decided to go back to college, get a master's degree. I was interested in agriculture, so I pursued a degree in ag business.
Mhm.
And then from there, I entered the consulting industry, and then became a real estate analyst. And after that, I went back into consulting kind of on my own, as opposed to working for a consulting firm, and was hired to help a small business develop a business plan so that they could get a loan of some financing from a bank, and that all worked out. I continued to work for them, and after that, an opportunity came up to get my own small business, and that's kind of how it all came about. Um, I worked with my wife for about 15 years owning a luggage store.
Mhm.
And after that, I decided I wanted to transition. So an opportunity came up to, again, consult for a scrapyard. And that's how I got involved in the recycling business. And I helped that owner out with some questions about their finances. I became the yard manager, and I stuck with that, did that for about 10 years. And then after that, went off on my own and am doing what I'm doing today.
It's your commitment to the environment, because I know that I read your resume and you plant trees, you are very concerned about the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the reason why you end up working in the recycling business and putting this kind of company yourself?
Well, it's funny. Growing up, my mom was very kind of conscientious about recycling. I grew up in the 70s. And so that's when the recycling sort of industry started to evolve with cans and plastic, and, getting paid back from sending your deposits in and so on. So it was always in the back of my mind that recycling was an important aspect of our lives. But I honestly got into it sort of by accident, because if someone hadn't hired me to help them with their business, I probably would not have gotten into the recycling business. Um, it's an interesting business, in that it's a lot of them are small family-owned businesses.
Mhm.
And so there are some publicly traded uh, scrap yards, recyclers, but for the most part, they're mom and pop businesses. So cracking into the industry is a little tricky.
Mhm.
So once I got in it and learned about it, I enjoyed it. I stayed with it. And
Good.
it's a good way to make a living.
And tell us a little bit more about Golden Gate Recycling and what kind of services you provide and what kind of clients. Who are your clients?
Sure. So my business is pretty full service. So
Mhm.
I deal in electronic waste. I deal in ferrous scrap metal. I broker metal. And then, as requested, I'll take on a consulting assignment to help people in the industry answer their questions and, get their concerns resolved. Um, so I buy and sell scrap metal. I will send some scrap metal to the scrap yard. With regards to the electronic waste, a lot of times, and that's the part of the business where anybody can really get involved without having a lot of capital. Okay, it doesn't take a lot. You have to have a truck, let's say, so you can haul material. But a lot of times when it comes to electronic waste, there's very little money outlay. In some cases, you'll just collect the material for no pay,
Mhm.
because you're offering a service. and you can sort that material. Some of it you'll send to the scrapyard for recycling, and then a lot of it you can keep and resell. And
Oh,
so you can have a pretty sizable online business just selling the
mhm.
usable electronic material you collect.
Mm. And do you also operate internationally? You do have any international clients or only you work for, I
It's
mean,
my business is, I would say, 99% domestic, US based,
mhm,
except scrap metal is sold internationally.
yeah.
So most scrap metal, more and more we're trying to keep the scrap metal in the United States, but that's a little challenging because of the logistics of hauling the materials. It's less expensive to send the material to Asia than it is to send the material to, say, Chicago or Wisconsin, where most of the foundries and mills in the United States are in the Midwest.
Mhm.
We're on the West Coast, so there is that logistics component that you have to kind of get past.
Yeah,
Um, so it's just easier to send it on a container to Asia.
interesting. Is the metal scrap business increasing or you have experienced a setback since COVID-19?
COVID-19 hasn't necessarily resulted in a setback. In fact, it's probably increased business. I think in the last 12 months, the business has really taken off.
Wow.
So demand for commercial metals is really increasing.
Mhm,
You would have to go back probably to around 2010, 2008 was sort of the last cycle
mhm.
that the industry had. There was an upswing. So prices now, for instance, copper, you haven't seen these prices probably for a good 14 or 15 years.
Wow.
So it's been a long time since metal prices have sort of come full circle.
Well, that's good news for you then.
Right. Well, it has a double-edged sword because more when prices go up, then more material becomes available. But then people that sell scrap metal kind of have their own personality, and they'll always think they want to sell it, but they have a hard time selling it because they
Yeah.
think it's going to be worth more in the future.
Mm.
So it's a fine line between people that are willing, ready, and able to sell their material, or just kind of calling to see what the price is.
Mhm. And do you think that recyclables continue to have a future? And if you compare the metal, the plastic, and the glass, what do you think?
Well, they all have a future, and in fact, I think companies, businesses outside of the traditional recycling industry are getting into the recycling industry. They're becoming recyclers. Exxon just announced that they're building a 500,000 metric ton plastic recycling facility. Essentially, they're going to build recycling facilities globally
Wow.
for plastic. So plastic is the big conundrum
Mhm.
for the most part because it doesn't decompose, and it goes in the landfill. So the whole idea is to minimize what goes in our landfills today,
Mhm.
and you would like to be able to recycle it and make something new from it, and then it continues the life of the plastic. So I think there's a big incentive now because of carbon emissions and the effort to reduce carbon emissions, that companies that traditionally weren't in the recycling business are now getting into the recycling business.
Mm. And what you would say that you do different from your competitors?
Well, my business is kind of designed more for the smaller generators, individuals, let's say, or small businesses that don't necessarily work in the recycling or scrap metal business. Computer repair shops is a good example, where they get a lot of material because of their repairs, but they don't really have anything to do with it. It's not what they do. So they can appreciate someone that will collect the material on their behalf and then make sure it doesn't go in the landfill.
Well, I know that as a business owner, it's so much stress and things to take But for you, it's important to have a balance between your personal life and your professional life. How do you find this balance, and what advices could you give to small businesses? Because it takes a lot of time, effort, commitment. So maybe you can give us some tips just to wrap up this interview.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, hopefully you can find yourself in a job that you really, really like, I think. And so for me, it's more of an avocation as opposed to a job. I enjoy what I do. And aside from making money and supporting your family and whatnot, I like the fact that it's a physical job. So I'm not just sitting all day behind a computer. I'm actually out in the field, handling material. And so that is a rewarding part of the business. It's a people business. So you're dealing with people all day long. You have to negotiate. So you have to have pretty good negotiation skills. You have to be able to kind of think on your feet and identify the material so you know what you're buying or selling. You can, when you look at stuff, for instance, a lot of times it doesn't look like anything. It's not like a bar of gold. You're looking at an air conditioning unit. You're looking at a radiator. You're looking at something that has other things attached to it. So you have to be able to differentiate what it is you're looking at and know if it has value or not. So you kind of have to, you have to sort of use all your senses. But in the end, it can be rewarding. It's a very good business. And you can strike a happy medium with it. You can have a good work-life balance.
That's beautiful. So you think that this is a key essential point for everyone who owns a small business to really have that balance, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you've got to want to work hard. I mean, nobody says it's easy, but you want to work smart.
Exactly. Work smart and love what you do, which I think is exactly the key point, right?
Correct.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. I think that it's great that you give us a little bit of insight about the recycling business and understanding better what's going on here in the United States and what is the direction that is taking this sector. So thank you so much for your time today. We're very happy that you've been here with us.
You're welcome, Ms. Silla. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.